you cannot see me. So Greg came to our staff retreat this past Saturday. And when we got off the call with him, or the Zoom call, or the presentation, my staff, Cassie and Jennifer, all just rambled on about how amazing that was and how they had so many good talking points from it. I am very glad. See, Melissa's already talking to everybody. He is amazing, and I've already started his book. She's on here for round number 2. So I'm happy to have him come and talk to you guys. Building cathedrals is much more than just talking about churches. It's about building your business. And I will pass it on over to Mr. Greg Coker, and you feel free to give more background about yourself if you would like.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm honored, humbled, and appreciative to be a part. And this story is near and dear to me. I would say it saved my life in a way. I tell folks I was hired by a great leader and fired by a great manager. And grew up in Franklin, Kentucky, around the border, Simpson County, near Bowling Green, live in Bowling Green now. I felt like I had a stellar career going. I had 15 years with AT&T, rose the ranks there, was recruited by our governor and was a regulator on the Public Service Commission for 4 years. I was recruited by this guy that when he walked in the room, the oxygen just increased. And we talk a lot about emotional intelligence. There's IQ and there's EQ. And I'm convinced, at least thank goodness for my part, because I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I have high IQ like you do, or high EQ like you do. You have high IQ and EQ. Emotional intelligence is how we connect with other people. And like grit, I work in prisons and do reentry programs. And those guys and gals are gritty. You can't teach that grit. And the grit that we've all got from me being fired, the ups and downs in all of our lives, grit. And there's a great book by Angela Duckworth called Grit. Grit and EQ, in my humble opinion, is a better predictor of life success than IQ. How many agree with that? We all know very bright, smart people. I lived next door to one in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. He had to be Mensa. He read every book in the library. He couldn't get out of the house barely. He was non-functional. So your emotional intelligence, your grit, your oxygen, and I define emotional intelligence as what happens to the oxygen when you walk in the room. What happens to the oxygen when you walk in the room? And we've all been during the holidays around that aunt or uncle that you didn't know was going to be there. And all of a sudden she shows up, he shows up, and you're like, oh my gosh, look who's here. Daryl Catlin, Harrodsburg, Kentucky. When he walks in the room, everybody just loves Daryl, because Daryl's always my wife's uncle. He's like my uncle because my wife and I have been married almost 30 years now. You just can't wait to be around him because he's always asking about you and your family. And that's emotional intelligence. And you've been a part of those family members, even former realtor friends or whatever, they walk in the room, it's all about them. And the oxygen decreases. And unfortunately, I've probably been that person in the past before. I heard a podcast not too long ago that says, I'm finally learning how to dance, but the dance is almost over. Wow. I'm finally learning how to dance, but the dance is almost over. Now I'm 56 years old. I hope the dance lasts 106 years old, whatever. I love life. And so my dance is not almost over, but I look at 56, man, I wish I was as balanced at 36, at 26, at 46, and I am at 56. And that's that emotional intelligence, that balance. So hired by a great leader, when he walked in the room, wow, everybody wanted to be around him. He drove a BMW, he made tons of money, but it didn't matter. He didn't wear that on his sleeve, but people just loved John. And then he got recruited to corporate. Now, I was on the subway in Atlanta, Georgia, with the president of AT&T when I worked for AT&T. And I asked him a question. I said, what's it take to get ahead in this company? And he said 2 things. Without hesitation, he said, you got to be smart or smart enough. And Greg, you're smart enough. And you've got to have a sponsor I'll never forget that. Got to have a sponsor. And I had a sponsor. His name was David Owen. He was my sponsor in the phone company. And I got laid off from the phone company for about 3 days. I already had my application into Humana. I got a job offer from them, but I hadn't officially left the company yet. He intervened. He called me. He said, Greg, you're not leaving. So what do you mean I'm not leaving? I've already got my paperwork. And he goes, no, I've stopped your paperwork. You're staying. See, he was my sponsor. And you could just tell my career trajectory was going up when I had a sponsor. But guess what? David left for corporate. I lost my sponsor and I flatlined. Same thing happened with this last company. When John left the corporate, because they needed a culture guy, they needed an EQ guy. And guess who we got? We got an IQ guy. We got a manager. And Kevin wasn't a bad guy, but he was a horrible leader. And when he walked in the room, the oxygen depleted. You know, people in our company prior to when John was there, people loved the company. You know, they couldn't wait for us to come volunteer for them and cook out for them or whatever. See, speed of the team, speed of the leader. And leadership is action, not position. We're all leaders. See, we're not born leaders or born followers. We're born choosers. We're not born winners or losers. We're born choosers. And it's between my ears. My brain only has one way to interpret, and that's the way I talk to it. And a habit becomes a habit after about 30 days. Some people say it's about 90 days. It's probably more closer to 90 days. But if I can do something for 30 days, if I can start reading in leaders or readers, and I used to tell myself I'm not a big reader. Well, guess what? My brain interpreted, you're not a big reader. Shame on me for telling my brain that. I am a big reader. I wasn't a big reader in the past, but guess what? A habit becomes a habit after 30 days. Last night before going to bed, I read Psalms and Proverbs first for about 3 minutes. And then I've been reading, I love Hemingway. I've been reading Farewell to Arms. And I read about 2 pages because my dog started whining and I turned the lights off. Only read 2 pages, but I read. You know, leaders are readers. So hired by a great leader, fired by a great manager. And I'm in the unemployment line. How many have been in the unemployment line before? I mean, that's good for the soul. I mean, I've always considered myself a leader and a winner. And there are 2 stories. I'm in the unemployment line, and there's 2 stories that come to mind. One, John F. Kennedy, supposedly at NASA, and he sees 2 people sweeping the floor. The first one, he went up to and he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm sweeping the floor." Second one, he goes, "What are you doing?" He goes, "With all due respect, Mr. President, I'm helping you put a man on the moon." Wow. I always consider myself sort of a man on the moon type person. The second story I always heard was a man or lady walking down the street, sees 2 people laying brick. "What are you doing?" "I'm laying brick." Second one, "What are you doing?" "I'm building a cathedral." I'd always consider myself a cathedral builder. But I'll be honest with you, I'm in the unemployment line. I didn't feel like a cathedral builder. I didn't feel like helping the president put a man on the moon. I felt about this darn high. Now, ironically, I've actually gone back to that same unemployment center. They call them career centers now, and actually done this workshop for them and let them know that guess what? You're dealers of hope, not dealers of dope. And that's Rosie Greer. I love Rosie Greer, former football player, said, "I'm not a dealer of dope. I'm a dealer of hope." Well, guess what? When folks walk into your career center, you need to pick them up. So they go, "Man, it needs to look like a Starbucks or something, not a freaking 3rd grade concrete building. It smelled like no offense to those schools or institutions. But when I walked in the unemployment center, it stunk. It smelled institutionalized. It had old block building. Now my friend who runs the career center has moved locations. It looks like a Starbucks now. Because mentally, when those folks walk in, they need to feel hope. And as a leader in real estate, when they walk into your office, they need to feel hope, inspiration. Because very often folks that are selling their house are not selling them because they want to. They're in bad, they need to, whatever. They need some hope. And you're dealers of hope. So I'm in the unemployment line and those 2 stories come to mind. And I could not get that cathedral builder story out of my mind. Was it true? Started doing research. It actually is true. It's based on a guy named Sir Christopher Wren. Sir Christopher Wren, and I'd never heard of Wren before. Sir Christopher Wren is one of the greatest architects in history. In England, he is known. He's a daily word in England. I'd never heard of Christopher Wren. Christopher Wren was commissioned to rebuild St. Paul's Cathedral after the Great Fire of 1666 that leveled London. I'd never heard of the fire of 1666. I'd heard of the one in Chicago and Atlanta, but this one wiped out everything. The number one reason for the plague, the number one reason for the fire was the plague. After the fire burnt down, it was a spark, but 10,000 people a year died of the plague. The number one cause of the plague, rats and fleas. Nasty rats and fleas. But guess what happened after London burnt to the ground? Rats and fleas were eradicated. Germs and disease was eradicated. So in 1666, after the fire of 1666, Christopher Wren observes 3 bricklayers on a scaffold. I'd always heard 2. He observed 3. One crouched, one half standing, one standing very tall, working very hard and fast. To the first bricklayer, Christopher Wren asked the question, "What are you doing?" To which he replies, "I'm working. I'm a bricklayer." Totally disengaged. The second bricklayer, Christopher Wren asked the question, "What are you doing?" To which supposedly he replies, "I'm building a wall." And I think he was probably happy about that wall. But did he see the big picture? The third bricklayer, the most productive of the 3, the future leader of the group, the future realtor of the group, if you will, when Christopher Wren asked the question, "What are you doing?" With a gleam in his eye, he exclaims, "I'm building a cathedral to the Almighty." And that story has been told for over 300 years. The most productive people in life, the most productive people in business, in real estate, in your churches, in your communities, in your school systems, in government. And we're in a funk right now. I mean, non-political, we've got a cathedral, but guess what? It needs some polishing right now. But the most successful people in life are those of purpose. So for the next 30 or so minutes, Christy and Paul and others asked me to sort of share this story. What can we learn from this powerful 300-year-old story? And I think the metaphors are huge. And that's what captivated me. When I heard that story, I'm sitting there going, I'm not a big reader at the time. I was telling myself I wasn't a big reader, which I really wasn't at the time. So I can't write a book. The heck you can't write a book. Everybody on this call's got a book in them. You got 3 or 4. I've written 3 books. When I started doing the metaphors there, see if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a metaphor is worth 10,000 pictures. And I couldn't get those metaphors out of my mind. And after I heard this story, I'm sitting there going, the metaphors, that's a book waiting to be written. So let's talk about the metaphors. The first metaphor, Christopher Wren. The leadership of Christopher Wren. Never heard of Christopher Wren. Christopher Wren is what I would call a Renaissance leader. Christopher Wren was clearly an architect. He was an astronomer. Sir Isaac Newton said that most astronomical equations should be attributed to guess who? Sir Christopher Wren. Christopher Wren was a medical doctor. Christopher Wren was a child prodigy. And Dr. Thomas Willis is known in medical circles as the father of neurology, the brain. And Dr. Thomas Willis was looking for someone to help draw illustrations of the brain because he knew medical students need to know what the anatomy of the brain looked like. So who did he recruit? A 12-year-old Christopher Wren. So Christopher Wren drew the brain. Matter of fact, up to the 17, 18, 1900s, most illustrations of the brain were done by guess who? Christopher Wren. It was Christopher Wren who injected alcohol into a dog's vein and noticed visible signs of intoxication. Got the dog drunk. And for the first time realized in the 1600s, we could inject drugs intravenously. I mean, this guy is amazing. So he was an astronomer, a medical doctor, a teacher, an engineer. So clearly left brain, but he was also right brain. See, he got out behind his desk on a busy Wednesday morning, like the day in Lexington or Nicholsville or wherever you are in Richmond, too cold to get out. I ain't going to get out. No, you got to get out. That person walking down the street, you got to get out and say, "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm working." "Now, what are you really doing?" "Well, I'm picking your trash up." No, that's a tool, man. Do you realize what you do for our community? The cleanliness, the order in which you do, that police officer. And I think in our world right now, there's never been a greater need for a Christopher Wren. But the key question I ask you, are you the Christopher Wren in real estate? We get real busy. See, there's management and leadership. The manager wants to close the deal. The manager wants to hurry up and get them out of the car and let them show. But the leader goes, slow it down. Slow it down. What do you do for a living? Wow, that's awesome. What you do, if you're a police officer, that's a tool. It's a great tool, man, but you're so much more than that. Real estate, what do you do? You friends of mine that are musicians. What do you do? Well, I'm working tonight. I got a gig at 8:00. What do you mean? No, I play bass. I listened to Neil Diamond last night at 3:00. Well, this morning I couldn't sleep. So I got on, I started Googling Neil Diamond because my mother started talking about Neil Diamond. I said, what a song. What a song. And I'm thinking, man, I cried listening to that song. I'm thinking, going, what a beautiful thing of being a musician. How many out there got friends that are musicians? What do you do? Well, I'm working tonight. What are you really doing? I'm in a band. No, change lives. That's the Christopher Wren. So the key question I ask you this afternoon is, are you a Christopher Wren in your real estate office at RE/MAX Elite? What about the second metaphor? What about the fire? See, I've been doing this speech for about 10 years now. And I always thought that the next metaphor, the cathedral, would be the most important. That would be grab everybody. That grabs people for sure. This one's what grabs everybody, the fire. See, because what doesn't turn you into ash turns you into iron. And my wife will tell you, I think, my kids will tell you, he's a better husband, he's a better father because of, guess what? The fire. See, London was horrible before 1666. 10,000 people a year died of the plague. The number one cause of plague, rats and fleas. But after the fire, the rats and fleas were eradicated. And the leaders of London, the leaders of RE/MAX Elite said, let's make this place better, stronger, faster. And they did. When I was in a church service, been 5 or 6 years ago. John Bowling, Methodist Church, Franklin, Kentucky. I'll never forget what he said. He said, your kids, and he wasn't really pointing at me. That's a God thing. He was pointing at me. He goes, your kids will learn more from your failures in life and how you've handled them than any success you've ever had. Whoa. Like everybody on this call, I've met some really important people. I've worked for presidents. I lived in Washington, D.C. I've met presidents. I've been with presidents. I've worked for governors. I've met important people. I got friends that are rich. That doesn't. My kids don't give a flying rat's rearing about that. What they remember and what they're most influenced by is looking at me out there crying after I got fired from corporate America. Wondering, my wife out on the porch. See, we were good Monday through Saturday. Sunday, we sat on the back porch, and that's when my wife started saying, how are we going to make it? You've gone from making darn good money, stock options, pension, to making nothing. What are we going to do? Sundays were always the toughest. But guess what? My kids remember us out there talking. My kids see me now, and I'm not breaking my arm, patting myself on the back, but I'm just telling you a story like your story too, is your kids are noticing how you go from adversity, and that's the fire. Well, guess what? The folks you deal with in real estate, they're going through fires, I would say. Matter of fact, above RE/MAX Elite, put, the moniker of your real estate office should be fire department. Would you agree? You're in the fire business. And maybe that's the metaphor to say, we're going to help you get through this better, stronger, and faster. Let me tell you a story about Christopher Wren. Like, who? Christopher who? And tell the story. Good writers borrow, great writers steal. Paul mentioned this morning, goes, I used your story, I stole it. Oh, you didn't steal it, I stole it. Good writers borrow, great writers steal. And I work in prisons. I'm sitting there going, if you authentically, and see, authentically is the key word. Authentically, if you can tell the story and mean it, you're going to get the job. Every time you're going to get the job. Because see, people buy on emotion and justify with fact. People buy on emotion, they hire that inmate, and they justify with fact. They go to HR and sit there going, well, we hired him or her because they got a background in HVAC, and I think they'll be able to make and the HR person's in there going, they're a convicted felon. Are you sure you want to do this? Oh, well, their background said, yeah, see, you hire on emotion because they grabbed you, and then you justify with fact. The folks in real estate are going to choose you on emotion. And then they're going to go back to their significant other and say, well, we hired RE/MAX Elite because they've got a great team and they've sold so many houses and they're blah, 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 blah. No, that you have done that. So you've got to have the fact, and you all have got the success behind you, but they're only hiring you if you grab them emotionally. They're only hiring you if you're in the cathedral building business. There's a lot of real estate agents out there. A lot of them are lazy. Would you agree? I say that because hopefully I've built some trust with you. I mean, I've sold and bought, and we've moved all over. I don't know how many houses we've had since my wife and I married. And I've been around some really good ones. I've really been around some that were okay. Guess what? There's a customer report card. A, if you knock my socks off, I give you an A. B, if you exceed my expectations, I give you a B. C, as expected. There's no loyalty at C. Will someone say, well, okay, well, I sent thank you notes and I made phone calls and I had everything written out for them. C. What? Well, guess what? Because what they did in Nicholsville at Remax Elite, and when I moved to Bowling Green, and my real estate agent here thinks that they're getting an A or B, they get a C. Because guess what? You all have exceeded my expectations. Now you've raised the bar. Well, the converse is true. Steve and Angie Klein, my friends are here in Bowling Green, great friends. They were ours. What Steve and Angie has done used to be A and B for other people. Now it's C. You know, customer loyalty is built when you build cathedrals. I work with a lot of banks, and I'm a preferred vendor for Kentucky Bankers Association. But I'll be honest with you, a lot of banks out there are going through the motions. They sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here, initial here, initial here, laying brick, building walls. But if you slow your heels and say, Greg, tell me about this book you wrote. Pretty cool. How'd you do that? That's pretty cool. Tell me about your kids. Oh, that's awesome. Let me see some pictures. And so you may be sitting there going, I got to hurry up and get to this. I got to hurry up and get to this. That's the manager. That's the manager. And you got to be a manager and a leader, not or, it's and. So you got to get things done. But the leader says, slow it down. It's now time to lead, not so much manage right now. So the first metaphor is Wren. Second metaphor is the fire. Third metaphor is a cathedral. And I've already sort of got into that. Cathedral, the way I define a cathedral is a personal expression of purpose. God Almighty, number one. Family, number two. Remax Elite, number three. What about number 4 or 5? Boys and Girls Club, United Way. That good looking dog is on your lap right there. See, guess what? The more I support your cathedral, the more engaged you're going to be. And I'll repeat that because I have failed miserably. The more I support your cathedral, the more engaged you're going to be. So on a Monday morning or whatever, I'm ready to rock and roll and start, and the manager's kicking in. It's 8 o'clock, 5 minutes early, it's 10 minutes late. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Well, guess what? You're sitting there going, well, yeah, I got a new dog, or I went fishing this weekend. That's low hanging fruit. Cool your management jets. Say, tell me about that dog. What kind of dog? Oh, it's a beautiful dog right there. Tell me about your boat, Greg. Pretty nice. Well, it's an old boat, but it's a pretty big boat. We bought it cheap. And you got your pictures of it? Yeah. See, the more you support my cathedral, the more engaged I'm going to be. With your kids, the more you support your children's cathedral, their interest, the more engaged they're going to be. And customer loyalty is built at the cathedral builder level. But most importantly is, do you see Remax Elite as a cathedral? Because if you don't, nobody else is. Number 4, the 3 bricklayers. That's the 4th metaphor. Which bricklayer are you? I played all 3 roles. What are you doing? I'm laying brick. I'm a bricklayer. How many felt that way before? How many felt that way this morning? I did, because I got up at like 3, like I said, couldn't sleep. So I got on the computer for a little bit, and I finally went back to sleep around 4:30. Woke up at 6:30 or 7, and that's late for me, but bricklayer. Felt like a darn bricklayer. But guess what? I had a client call at 9 a.m. You better not be a bricklayer. You ain't getting that business. So guess what? When I woke up, by the time I got out of the shower and put my clothes on or whatever, I had to pump myself up. I had to be a cathedral builder. I had to be the why in the Simon Sinek, which we talked about Saturday. And that's your homework assignment, is Google Simon Sinek, start with why. It's the number 2 most downloadable TED Talk in the history of TED Talks. And he talks about the golden circle. There's in the middle, there's the why. The outside is the how, and then there's the what. Most people start with what. Now, what do you do? Well, I'm in real estate. Well, not very motivating. Well, how do you do it? Well, I mean, let me tell you, I got a program right here. I got this. That's a little bit more motivating. Why do you do it? Because I'm in the people helping business. I'm in the cathedral building business. See, that's the why. That's a lot more motivating. Martin Luther King didn't say I had a plan. He said I had a dream. The Wright brothers, the only reason the Wright brothers were successful is because people gave their blood, sweat, and tears to crash airplanes with them. And they went to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, because guess what? There was lots of wind and lots of sand. They knew they had to crash. And there were people that got in their car and drove thousands of miles to get to Kitty Hawk to be able to be the first ones to be able to help you and me go see our family in Florida, whatever. That's the why. We had some guy named Langley at the War Department. He wanted to be famous. That's the what. And nobody followed him. And guess who got to the airplane first? The Wright brothers. So the why is the cathedral. And the bricklayers, the first bricklayer, what are you doing? I'm laying brick. I'm a bricklayer. We've all felt that way before. The second bricklayer, what are you doing? I'm building a wall. Happy about the wall, but didn't see the big picture. The third bricklayer, I'm building a cathedral to the Almighty. So again, which bricklayer are you? And then lastly, but not leastly, is building cathedrals through touching and inspiring other people. See, I think we have the opportunity, I think we have the responsibility every day to touch people in a deep and meaningful way. Why don't I do it? Well, she think I'm flirting with her? No, if you don't hang out there all day long. I saw a lady walking out of not Starbucks, Chick-fil-A here in Bowling Green about 4 or 5 months ago. She glowed. I mean, as soon as she walked out, I'm sitting there going, wow, what a beautiful person. Now, one part of me says, well, she think I'm flirting with her. I ain't gonna say that. Well, forget it. Roll the window down. I said, excuse me. She goes, yeah. I said, man, you just glow. You just glow. I mean, your dress, you just glow. She looked at me and she goes, thank you. I need to hear that this morning. And then I watched her go into Chick-fil-A, and guess what? I saw her opening doors for people. See, that one comment, authentically, I have that opportunity. You have that opportunity every day to touch people in a deep and meaningful way. And goodness knows we need it right now, this COVID-19. I mean, these people, and I saw on Facebook a couple of months ago, the people you need to check on are guess who? Greg Coker. And everybody on his call. Because everybody thinks all of us sitting there going, we got this smiling face. You ain't gonna worry about them. You got to worry about Greg Coker. I hide it a lot of times. I know probably everybody on this call, we all hide things. So reach out to the people you don't think you need to reach out to. I mean, reach out to the people you definitely need to reach out to, but reach out to us too, because we all need it. And we all have that opportunity every day to touch people in a deep and meaningful way. So let's talk about Christopher Wren. Let's get into metaphors real quick. Christopher Wren, I think, was a balanced leader. And this is what we talked about last weekend. This is the social style model. So it's not new to most of you on this call. If you've not seen this model, then I think you recorded, Paul, the session from Saturday. Go back and look at the recording. If not, then I'll come back and do it for you again. Driver, analytical, expressive, amiable. I think Christopher Wren was right there in the middle. Again, I think Christopher Wren was a balanced leader. Now, Greg Coker, if you ask me, where's Greg Coker? He's driver, expressive. Well, that's made me successful. But it's also hindered me very often. I would be a lot more effective. And at 56, I'm starting to be a little bit more in that middle than I was at 26. See, at 26, 36, I was up in those four corners. I was up in that at the very top, the top right, at the driver, top right, analytical, top left, expressive, bottom right, and then amiable, bottom left there. And what do you call folks who spend all their time in those four corners? Unemployed, divorced, incarcerated. Extreme. How many people know people like that? I mean, my gosh, don't stop doing what you're doing. Just modify it a little bit, moderate a little bit. I think Christopher Wren was right there in the middle. Christopher Wren was left brain. He was right brain. He was an architect, an engineer, astronomer, a scientist, a medical doctor, as I mentioned. He was right brain. He was an architect. He was an artist. He was a teacher. He's very modest. You don't hear much about Christopher Wren because he didn't patent anything. Someone walked up to him one day and said, what do you think about him stealing your idea? He goes, I think you did a pretty good job with it. It's what Jim Collins, the book Good to Great, calls a level 5 leader. They got an ego, but it ain't about them. It's about Remax. It's about elite. It's not about you personally. It's not about me personally. He was inspirational. See, only 2 people saw the cathedral that day. See, the first bricklayer saw bricks. Second bricklayer saw the wall. The third bricklayer in Christopher Wren saw the cathedral. So in your life, with your kids, with your husband, with your wife, with your colleagues, with your church, there's never been a better time and a greater need to help folks see the cathedral, to be that inspirational person. What about MBWA, managed by walking around? Managed by walking around was the clipboard. That's when, back in the phone company, I walked around, compliance, making sure everybody was doing the right thing. Well, that's important. Leadership by walking around is putting that sucker down. Walking around and just, how's everybody doing? Guess what I got? I got some Starbucks coffee. I got some donuts. Or my brother-in-law used to still works for the phone company. When I worked for the phone company, he said, Coker, when you come down to Richmond, you come down to Harlan and all the places you come and visit us because you're the big dude or whatever, and you bring donuts and coffee. Well, we appreciate it. But if you really want to turn us on, bring sausage and biscuits from Cracker Barrel. Yeah, baby. So I started going to Cracker Barrel and getting sausage and biscuits. Again, authentically, but that's leadership by walking around. It's management and leadership, not management or. I was hired by a great leader, fired by a great manager. And I don't blame the board of directors as much. I don't blame Kevin that fired me as much as I blame the board. The board should have come down and said, listen, John, you're leading. Everybody loves you, but you're spending money, too much money. And then with Kevin, you've got the company back where it needs to be financially. Why is everybody leaving? Why is everybody retiring? Why'd you fire Greg Coker? And you gave him how much money to leave? See, it's management and leadership, not or. And how visionary are you? And what about the fire? The fire of 1666, the second metaphor. 430 acres destroyed, 13,000 homes, loss of life, less than 20, amazingly. It was started by a fire in a bakery. One spark burnt the whole town down. Pre-1666, London was very medieval. You've seen Les Miserables. I called it Les Miserables, and I married a classy girl from Harrisburg, and she goes, it's Les Miserables. I'm like, well, I thought it was Les Miserables. But whatever it is, before 1666, London was horrible. Post 1666, London emerged as a modern city. So we all have our personal fires, but like London, we too can emerge better, stronger, and faster. So what are the key questions this afternoon, this morning down here in Bowling Green? What are the key questions? What fires have you been through in your life? Everybody been through fires in here? We all have. Number two, how'd you react? Did you point a finger? See, when you point a finger, you got three coming right back at you. How do you wish you'd have reacted? And specifically, what enabled you and others to come out of these fires better, stronger, and faster? So guess what? There's characteristics. There's characteristics of folks like you that come out of the fires. It's a book by Dr. Raymond Flannery called Stress Resistant People. And there's 7 characteristics of people like you and me. I'm going to give you 7. And you can share them with your friends and family, maybe your clients, especially if they're going through fires. And they're going, I found that there's 7 basic characteristics. And it's based on research by Dr. Raymond Flannery. Number 1, they take personal control. People who come through fires, they're empowered versus overpowered. At some point, you got to pick yourself up. And one thing about depression, you get caught up on your sleep. And after I got fired, I slept a lot. But guess what? At some point, my buddy from Chicago called me. He said, Coker, welcome to the club, buddy. And the music stopped for me. I didn't have a chair in corporate America. So guess what? At some point, you got to buy the new clothes, a new suit, clean yourself up. And people have to ask the question, what are you smoking? Now, that's not the best example. What he was basically saying is, I want some of that. See, before that, everybody was looking at me going, oh my gosh, here comes Greg Coker. He's going to tell the story how he got screwed from corporate America. I don't want to be around him. Anybody done that? So I had to change my whole image. I had to change my brand. Number 2, they're task involved. They're purpose driven. They got a cathedral to build. Number 3, they seek social support. And how many have a Hardee's or McDonald's in your hometown like I do in my hometown? There's about 87 old people before COVID-19 eating sausage and biscuits and coffee, and they probably don't spend $3 collectively. That's my mom in Franklin, Kentucky. And that's what's hurt my mom the most during COVID-19 is she can't be around her friends. And there's been studies of people called blue zones, people that live past 100. And guess what? They all have close relationships with their family and their friends. And we've got that social support, and people like you and me need to get back in church. We need to start going back out with a coffee, but there's Zoom, thank goodness, but it's still not the same. But folks like you and me, folks that come through stress, seek social support. Number 4, they make wise lifestyle choices. How many during COVID-19 have, tried to get their health back together? I take zinc, I take vitamin D, vitamin C. I'm trying to watch my health. I'm trying to watch what I eat. I started riding a bike when this COVID started. I haven't walked this much in this week because it's so cold outside. But guess what? I've got to realize, and there's a book called Rich Habits. There's a book called Rich Habits. Google Rich Habits. And one of the habits of rich people is they make wise lifestyle choices and they strive to be at their personal best. If you join me on Facebook, I do a Monday Motivator. And my first Monday Motivator as part of my 2021 goals, because guess what? Rich people have goals. Everybody has goals. Rich people write them down. And I'll be honest with you, I've always taught that, preached it, but up until like 4 years ago, I never wrote my goals down. So excuse me getting out of the screen for you right here, but guess what? These are my goals. I wrote them down this year. 2 years ago, I wrote them down too. Last year, I sort of wrote them down and I met some of them. This year, I want to look at that every day. Rich people write their goals down. People who come through stress, they make wise lifestyle choices. They strive to be at their personal best. Number 5, they have a sense of humor. I do a drug every day. It's called endorphin. I try to laugh every day. I try to cry every day. You see, Jim Valvano, that's your next homework assignment. Google Jim Valvano and do his EPSI speech. Just Google Jim Valvano. 2 videos will come up. One, NC State, Houston Cougars. He's running around the court looking for somebody to hug. He couldn't find anybody to hug because guess what? Everybody's hugged up. I never wanted to hug someone more to jump through the TV screen. The second video you'll see is him accepting the Arthur Ashe Humanitarian Award. Now, I'm still in the thunder because that's another past slide, but I'll just go ahead and tell you right now. He said if you can do 3 things every day, if you can think, if you can laugh, and if you can cry. Think, laugh, and have your emotions move to tears. It's not a boo-hoo cry. It's a Holy Spirit cry. And I got watery eyes just a while ago when I was telling you all the story about being in the unemployment line. And I told a story about my wife and me being on the back porch. I got watery eyes. That's what Jim Valvano's talking about, Greg. Live it. Embrace it. It's okay. And at 56 years old right now, man, I don't worry about getting nervous for a speech. I worry about crying. I mean, I was telling my daughter, what did I do? I gave a $20 tip or something. You know, with church now, I try to tithe with online churching, but I haven't done a lot as much as I should. So what I've been thinking God's calling me to do is give some money away. So if somebody, delivers pizza to my door and they got this smiling face, I'll give them a $20 tip. I don't do it all the time. But guess what? I was telling my daughter that story and she looked at me, she goes, "Are you crying?" Oh, yeah, I'm crying. This is the Holy Spirit. That's what Jim Valvano was talking about. Because I started thinking about that young lady looked at me and I think maybe before that morning, maybe she was praying, sitting there going, God, I just need $360. Well, guess what? My 20 may have contributed to $360 she needed or whatever. We all have that need to touch people in a different way, but we have a sense of humor. We can laugh, we can think, we can cry. They have religious values and ethical regard for the people. This is not a religious speech, but guess what? Dartmouth, Harvard, MIT have all done studies. Folks who pray are sick less often. Folks go to the church, get out of the hospital quicker. So whatever, doing to others as you have doing to you, but they have those religious values and ethical regard for the people. And then lastly, but not least, they're optimistic. How many had grandparents like I had that said, "This too shall pass"? Everybody out there? That's what they were saying. They're optimistic. Fear got us into all this, COVID-19. Of course, the virus did too. I'm not poo-pooing it. I'm not discounting. But guess what? Optimism is going to get us out of it. Because your immune system, every one of us should be sick right now. There's enough germs going around in my house. There's enough germs going around every day. I should be sick every day. You should too. Guess why I'm not? Because my immune system, it fights it off. And all 7 of these, guess what, are good for your immune system. In addition to vitamin C and D and zinc or whatever, is your attitude. And these are the 7 characteristics. So the third metaphor, what about a cathedral? The way to find a cathedral is a personal expression of purpose. God Almighty, number 1, family, number 2, Remax Elite, number 3. What's your cathedral? Key question, what's your cathedral? What's your cathedral? Number 2, do you recognize and support other people in the building of their cathedral? Now, I hit on this one hard because guess what? I have torn down a lot of cathedrals. I tore my dad's cathedral down. Now, my dad passed away about 8 years ago. My dad was a factory worker, a farmer, and I always label him a bricklayer, factory worker, farmer. He was a cathedral builder. And guess what his cathedral was? His tobacco. Every afternoon at 4 o'clock, my dad left the hard factory floors and raised some of the best tobacco in Simpson County, probably some of the best tobacco in Kentucky. And before my dad passed away, guess what? He pulled this out of his wallet. He said, son, you remember this? I looked at it, I said, Dad, I don't know if I remember that. See, that was the first time the only time my dad ever been in the newspaper. And a local banker, James L. Hammer, Luther, and James L. Hammer, it says there, agriculture consultant, Simpson County Bank. Before he was with the bank, he was with the school system. He was my FFA teacher. And then once he left the school, he went to go work for Simpson County Bank. And Simpson County Bank let him loan money to farmers, my dad. And once a month, he would write an article about some farmer in Franklin that was doing something pretty cool. And that was my dad. He never took it out of his wallet. He died with that. Excuse me, I set my alarm to let me know I got 15 minutes left. He died with that in his wallet. And I had been labeling my dad a bricklayer. Shame on me. And if your parents are still alive, if your grandparents, your aunt and uncle, call them, let them know, dude, man, what you did for me. I mean, I smoke a good cigar every once in a while. And I just like the smell of it. And the reason I like the smell of it, it reminds me of my dad. He didn't smoke, but he raised good tobacco, and I can smell it like it was yesterday. So guess what? Customer loyalty. And I went back to Franklin, and Simpson County Bank's now Regents Bank. Still a good bank, but it's not Simpson County Bank. And I tried to get my mom and dad to move over to Franklin Bank and Trust, which is a locally owned bank. They wouldn't move. You know why they wouldn't move? Right there. My dad and mom would never, and they still are at Regents, even though it used to be Simpson County Bank. They're still there. My mom's still there. My dad passed away. You know why? Because of that right there. So at Remax Elite, do you have a newsletter? Could you start a newsletter? Could you profile some cool people in Richmond and Nicholsville and Lexington and wherever your market area is? They'll never leave you. They'll never, ever leave you, because customer loyalty is built at the cathedral builder level. And that's a picture of my dad's cathedral. How many grew up in a barn like I did? That's a tobacco barn. How many got their butt whooped? And that's what it was. It wasn't a whipping, it was a whooping by that tobacco stick right there. That my dad tore me up, and I deserved it. He said, that'll be the last whipping you ever get. And I said, I hope so, because you about darn near kill me. But that right there is the fabric of my life. Look at the trusses. Look at the workmanship. I mean, Christopher Wren would have been impressed. So again, I'll ask the question, do you recognize and support others in the building of their cathedral? Is it time to start building your cathedral today? Or perhaps building your cathedral with more passion, more energy, more dedication. What about the next metaphor? The bricklayers. Gallup does a poll every year. 26% of employees, I would say 26% of realtors, are fully engaged. They're cathedral builders. 55% are partially engaged. They're good realtors, going through the motions. 19% totally disengaged. Moan, groan, complain. Now, I don't like to label people. Some people say that's not fair. If you want fair, go to a carnival. Guess what? You get labeled every day. And right now, if you could, in the people in your life, if you to put 26, 55, 19 across a sheet of paper and put everybody down the left-hand side, family members, could you label every one of them? Sure you could. Could people label you? Sure they could. And I played all three roles. So again, this afternoon, are you laying bricks? Are you building walls? Are you building cathedrals? The second bricklayer can at least see the wall. What are the dynamics between the three bricklayers? What if you're trying to build a cathedral and you got some person in your office that are moaning, groaning, complaining? You got to choose those friends. There's a great book called The Energy Bus. And if you listen to my Monday Motivator on Facebook this last Monday, I profiled that book, The Energy Bus. And it talks about 10 rules for the ride of your life. And one of them is to get the energy vampires off your bus. You know what an energy vampire is? People that suck energy out of you. Anybody know people like that? Anybody got family members like that? Get them off your bus. You can still love them. But gosh, there's a guy in Harrodsburg I tried to mentor, try to help him out. I paid to get his backyard. I paid to get his yard mowed. I gave him money. I tried to help him. And he was grateful, but he just, every time I'd see him I'd say, hey, Leonard, it's a nice day. It sucks, man. I hate this freaking weather. I'm like, okay, next maybe today. How you doing? I hate this weather. I'm like, finally, I told my wife, Nikki, I said, I'm writing them off. If I see him now, I'm not going to go out there, because guess what? He's an energy vampire. He's sucking energy out of my life, and I don't have time for that. Which bricklayer are you? Is it time to recommit? Or time to recommit to help other people build a cathedral? Now I went to Western, love WKU. Wife went to UK. I've taken classes at UK. I love UK Wildcats. Watched them last night. Didn't play that well there. But guess what? The best game in the history of the world is that game right there. Jim Valvano, NC State, Houston Cougars. I just referenced a while ago. Google Jimmy V. This will come up. And NC State beat Houston Cougars. See, I think a good team beats a great team almost every time in the Final Four. Do you agree? It's either because there's form, storm, norm, perform. Form, storm, norm, perform. And the great coaches like Jimmy V got a team from form, storm, norm, perform. Your other homework assignment is to rewatch the movie Hoosiers with Gene Hackman. See, Gene Hackman did a great job of getting that team from form, storm, norm, perform. With Jimmy V's running around the court, they beat Houston Cougars 5-slamma-jamma. And he's looking for somebody to hug. He couldn't find anybody to hug. I've never wanted to jump through the TV screen, hug someone more that day right there. Well, the key question, who in your life's running around looking for a hug? Who in your life? There's a lot of people right now that's just waiting for me to call them. Sitting there going, man, have I told you how much I love you? See, my wife says, you can give flowers to people while they're alive or at their funeral. And there's a lot of people out there waiting for a hug, and they're just they're running around at the Jim Valvano saying, hug me, hug me. Well, guess what? Some 10 years later, Jimmy V's dying of cancer. In front of millions of people, he's accepting the Arthur Ashe Humanitarian Award. Google that. That's a good cry for the day. He's supposed to talk about 1 minute or two, spoke like 12 minutes. And he said if we could do 3 things, think, laugh, and have our emotions move to tears, that's a heck of a day. If you can do that every day, you got a heck of a day. Google that when you get off a call. Well, I need to Google it, right? I'm going to Google it when I get off the call. I need to hear him every day tell me that. Think, laugh, and cry every day. Touch other people. We have the opportunity, I'd say we have the responsibility to touch other people every day in a deep, meaningful way. Help other people realize what they do makes a difference. See, one grandfather was a minister and one was a ER doctor. And in the ER, I like going to the ER doctors in Hartsville, Tennessee. I like going there a lot more than I went to Auburn, because no offense, but in Hartsville, Tennessee was a lot more fun because my grandfather worked every Sunday at the hospital. He'd come home in that old blue truck, and I was probably 2 or 3 years old. He'd get out of the truck with his greens on, and he'd come up, and I'd get in his lap, and I'll say, Granddaddy, tell me what you did today. He goes, well, Dr. So-and-so's crazy. Must have been a full moon last night, son. It was crazy there. Well, guess what? 3 or 4 years later, my mom and dad had to break the news to me. They said, Greg, your grandfather's not a doctor. Your grandfather's the custodian at the hospital. Well, nobody told me he was a doctor. I just assumed because he wore greens, he worked at a hospital, he must be a doctor. See, the key question there is, or the key point I'll make, and then I'll ask you a question. The key point, the doctors at that hospital made my grandfather realize his job was an important job. We can't do my job if you don't clean up this emergency room, Mr. Coker, Edward Coker. And I still go back, and I actually did a workshop for that hospital. And one young guy goes, I remember your grandfather. I said, thank you. Thank you for making him feel special. Because guess what? Everybody has the same need over dinner to look at their kids, to look at their wife, to look at their husband and go, I feel good about what I do. And everybody has that same need. Send handwritten notes. Send handwritten notes. That's a lost art right there. You should be, and I'm preaching to Greg Coker, because guess what? I look at mine. I send about 10 notes a week. Because guess what? People, customer loyalty is built when they get that handwritten note. Ask other people to tell you their story. Everybody's got a story. Whose story have I been telling most of my life? Greg Coker's story. People want to hear their story. They want you to ask about their story. And guess what happened? When you ask about their story, guess what they ask after they tell their story? Your story. So you can tell your story. I've had it all backwards. Again, I'm finally learning how to dance, but the dance, unfortunately, is almost over. Never underestimate the amazing power and responsibility of being a leader. Leadership's action, not position. We're all leaders. We're leaders in our family, in our communities, in our churches. Have a yes face. Now remind me your name right there, Miss Yes Face. You're on mute. Ruby. Oh my gosh. The story goes is Thomas Jefferson is riding cross country on horseback. He comes across a swollen river. The bridge is washed out. There's a guy on the side of the river on the bank, needs to ride across the river. He looks at Thomas Jefferson in the modern day Secret Service on horseback. He looks around. He goes right to Thomas Jefferson. He said, excuse me, sir, can I have right across the river? And supposedly Thomas Jefferson said, yeah, hop on the horse. So he hops on the horse, goes across the river. He gets off the horse. Thomas Jefferson trots off. The modern day Secret Service scolds the guy. How dare you? You could have asked any of us right across the river. You asked the president? First response, he goes, first of all, I didn't know he's president. Second of all, some people in life have a no face. Some people have a yes face. I went right to the yes face. Ruby is the yes face. And guess what? And I preach this stuff, Ruby, but guess what? I got a no face very often because I get in this management mode. Well, maybe somebody needs to come up and talk to me. Maybe my child, my kid need to come up and say, Dad, I need to talk to you now. But my face says no, because I'm busy watching the news. See, Abby, my daughter, came in last night, and I wanted to watch the 5:30 news. See, it comes on. See, Central Time. I've lived in Eastern Time. I lived in Central Time. I love Central Time. News comes on at 5:30. Comes on at 10 o'clock. I can go to bed. Well, it comes on at 5:30 down here. At 5:30, I want to watch the news. I want to hear all about this COVID-19 stuff. I need to stop watching so much darn news. But guess what? My daughter came in, and she came in at 5:29. Thank goodness I turned it off and listened to her story. Because very often my face says, I want to watch the news. No face. And my face to my children, to my wife, needs to say yes, to definitely my clients. Forgive and reconcile. My third book is called Healing the Wounds, Forgiveness and Reconciliation in the Workplace. Talked a little bit about that Saturday. Forgiveness is a choice, not an emotion. If you wait till you feel like forgiving somebody, you're probably not going to do it. It's a choice. It's a cancer. You got to get that cancer out of your body. So forgiveness is a choice, not emotion. And reconciliation does not necessarily mean resolution. See, my theory is most people forgive, they rarely reconcile. And the reason they rarely reconcile is because they think reconciliation means resolution. They think they got to talk about the bullcrap. And I'm convinced that most people forgive. And if you call them and you let them know, either overtly or covertly or subliminally, is that we're not going to dredge up any of the bullcrap, they'll accept your invitation to have coffee. And so what I do with teams, if there's somebody in this room right now you need to forgive them. If there's somebody you need to reconcile with, reconcile. But when you go have lunch or coffee or whatever you have, don't talk about the crap. Unless it's a habitual, and if it's a habitual thing, then you probably need to talk that stuff out. But most of the people I work with, it's not. And a lot of people sitting there going, that's pretty mushy, Greg. Well, it's a business issue because there's form, storm, norm, perform. And if two people used to click and now they don't click, you're costing me money. So y'all need to get it together and start making money for yourself and make money for me. It's a business issue. Forgive and reconcile. Be a parachute packer. Be a parachute packer. See, Charlie Plum's a friend of mine. Charlie Plum was in the Navy. See, Charlie Plum was shot down over Vietnam, spent 6.5 years in a POW prison camp, was beaten and tortured every day. He gets released. He's having a steak dinner in Kansas City, Missouri. Notice someone staring at him out of his sort of peripheral vision. Finally, the guy walks up to him. He goes, you're Charlie Plum. He goes, yeah, I'm Charlie Plum. He goes, you were on the USS Kitty Hawk. He goes, yeah. He goes, you were shot down December 3rd. You spent 6.5 years in a POW prison camp. You were beaten and tortured every day. And my friend Charlie Plum looks up at me and goes, how do you know that? He goes, because I packed your parachute that day. Wow. I packed your parachute that day. And my friend Charlie Plum used the metaphor of who packed your parachute. My dad packed my parachute. My Uncle Ralph packed my parachute. Mr. Hopkins on bus 29 packed my parachute because we weren't poor, but we didn't have a lot of money. And my mom and dad are both factory workers. And mom sent me to school at 5 years old, or maybe 6, but it felt like 5. I was scared to death. And Mr. Hopkins opened that bus on bus 29. It was all cold and rainy out there. He throws a t-shirt right in my face. He goes, young man, help me wash that windshield off. That windshield, did he wipe it off? He knew I was scared. He knew I needed a purpose. That's who packed my parachute. But the most important question maybe this afternoon is, whose parachute are you packing? If there's somebody on this call, and I know a couple of you look pretty young, if there's some folks that are new in the business, they need the parachute packed. And how many could say you thought about quitting when you first started and somebody made a phone call to you and packed your parachute and you're still here? So we all need our parachute packed. Be a cathedral builder. Every day I've got a bricklayer on this shoulder sitting there going, you too young, you too old, you too white, you too black, you too something. And then I got this cathedral builder sitting there going, you couldn't do it. You can't write a darn book. You're not a big read. Write the book. You can't write a second book. You got lucky on the first one. Write the second one. You definitely can't write hey, forgiveness and reconciliation, that's stuff. Write it. Because if one person can forgive and reconcile, then it's been worth all the work you've done. So be a cathedral builder. But lastly, but not leastly, in closing, be careful not to give them the whole load. And I feel like what I've done is giving you the whole load. And it reminds me of that old country preacher was asked to preach a sermon and nobody showed up to church because it was snowing. And he walks in this little country church and didn't think anybody was there, but on the front row was an old farmer, had a bib overalls on, old farm cap from Jessamine County. And actually they were in Tennessee, but the preacher looks at the guy and he goes, well, I guess we're not going to preach a sermon today because there's only one of you, and we'll go home. And the old farmer from Tennessee supposedly looked at the preacher and said, I don't know a lot. I'm just an old farmer from here in Tennessee. But I know one thing, if there's only one horse that comes to feed, I'm going to feed it. So the preacher goes, I guess this guy wants a sermon. So the story goes, he gets up behind the pulpit and he goes to town. And all of a sudden he looks at his watch, he's been going an hour and a half, nowhere near being done. And finally, about 2 hours later, he ends the sermon with a benediction and gets down and walks up to the old country guy and looks for some feedback. The old farmer hadn't moved an inch. He goes, I don't know a lot. I'm just an old farmer from here in Tennessee, but I know one thing. If I'm in the barn, only one of my horses come to feed, I'm going to feed it. But I'm not going to give it the whole load. So I feel like what I've done this afternoon is giving you the whole load, but I do think it's the whole load. It's going to even make you more successful, make you more productive, make you more happy, healthier, etc. So thank you all very much. I'll open it up. Paul, if there's any questions in the chat box or any questions, appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Some of our agents, not to cut Paul off, some of our agents are a little bit newer. And I think it might, if you've got time, it might kind of be good for them to hear the different personality types that you were talking about, that you mentioned. You said 4 corners.
If you and I'll send Paul the PowerPoint for this, and hopefully you recorded the session Saturday. But if you didn't, there's drivers, there's analyticals, there's expressives, there's amiables. We all tend to look out of 4 windows of the world. All 3 of my books are free downloads at gregcokerdevelopment.com. So all 3 of those books have the social style, especially soft skills field manual and forgiveness and reconciliation. But good, if you're going to look for the social style model, do soft skills field manual, and it builds that model for you. But the model basically says that we all tend to look out of 4 windows of the world. Not that I can't look out of all 4 of them, because I do, you do, but we tend to look out of maybe 1 or 2 more. Drivers, those folks, pop, 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 let's go, let's go. They're waiting for you in the driveway when you pull up to go show the house. They beat you to the punch. You got the analyticals that'll get out with a notebook with 37 houses and 37 descriptions. They're very thorough and analytical. For the driver, you got to be bottom line. Let's go, let's go, let's go. For analytical, you got to be very thorough, very methodical. We're going to see this house, then we're going to see this house. And I picked this house before that house because I know you're wondering because of it. Okay, I was wondering. And then the expressive is like me, and like Ruby out there. And guess what? If you're not excited about real estate, and if you're not excited about Remax Elite, guess what? I'm going somewhere else. And so you got to be excited. You definitely got to be out here because that's extreme sometime for me, but you got to be excited. And then the amiable, if my wife doesn't like you personally, she'll never, ever buy a thing from you, period. So you got to be likable. So the driver analytical is credibility. The expressive amiable is likability. John Weiss, I use John Weiss as an example. Even if you don't go to Southland Christian there in Nicholsville, go watch him one Sunday just to see his style. Wow. He's all 4 of them. And I think the mega churches, the Six Flags Over Jesus churches, that some of the small churches in there going, well, you'll never feel comfortable there. That's too big. That's like Bass Pro Shops. Hey, guess what? I feel the Holy Spirit at the big mega churches 10 times more than I do at the small churches sometimes. The reason is because guess what? They hit all 4 styles. They're drivers, bottom line. Here's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, now I know I can get engaged. Analytical, they're methodical. It's going to be based on the word. And then they're excited. They're happy to be there. This is good news. And they show videos of the little girl that's doing homework. Google that on Facebook. Little girl doing homework, and looks like her grandmother reading to her, trying to read. And she goes, so-and-so has $1 and she spends 80 cents. How much money does she have? And the little girl goes, she broke. It's funny. day. Well, guess what? Churches are well, I need to laugh in church too. So that's the expressive. Then the amiable is John is a good dude. You can just tell he's a good guy. See, back at the Harrisburg Baptist Church, no offense, but there was one minister there, very bright, had a doctorate, and a good guy. I knew him personally, but he wasn't very likable. He didn't come across very likable. Come across more, I am a doctor in theology, and we're going to talk about that today. I didn't know he had legs until 3 or 4 years ago. He stood behind the podium. This is the day the Lord has made. Well, that's drive analytical. You got to get out. And those are the 4 styles. So again, Soft Skills Field Manual, all 3 of my books are available, free downloads, gregcokerdevelopment.com. Facebook, join on Facebook. I got the Monday Motivator that I do. Feel free to use those. Everything that I've got for you, you can't steal anything because I give it all away. Other thoughts, comments, Christy?
I don't have
Book
any.
you said read about Simon. What was the last name?
Simon Sinek. It's Senek. And if you Google Simon Sinek, Senek, start with Y, you just Google it, and it'll be a TED Talk. And the TED Talk is about 18 minutes. There's a book also called Start with Why. I'm not suggesting you don't buy the book, but if you listen to the 18-minute TED Talk, that's all you need right there, baby. It's all you need. And he talks about Martin Luther King. I have a dream, and the dream is lived on because the why. And I heard someone say, and I love this, is as followers, we don't need our leader's roadmap as much as we need their compass. Where's the compass? Where's your compass? Other thoughts, comments?
I don't see anything in the chat right now. But that was
Thank you. It was very informative.
My pleasure. I'm the Chick-fil-A. See, words we use are important too. And, my wife's a flight attendant, and she used to be with American. Now she's with Allegiant, and she has to go to recurring training every year. And she came home and she goes, Greg, we were told never to say no problem. I said, what's wrong with no problem? When I say, you say, hey, Greg, thanks for picking me up today. Oh, no problem. She goes, when you say no problem, guess what they hear? They hear problem. She goes, we were told to start saying my pleasure. And that was really before Chick-fil-A started. But see, a habit becomes a habit after 28 days. And for about 400 days now, I've been saying my pleasure. It's just a change of word a little bit, but your voicemail, my voicemail, I've always tried to be uppy up. My brother-in-law, you call his voicemail, you have reached 859-735. I know what I reached. I called the darn number. You're losing an opportunity. So my buddy Skip Worth down the street here, when you call Skip, he goes, wouldn't you know, I just missed the most important phone call of the day. But not to worry. If you'll leave your name, message, and phone number, I'll call you back. Thanks for calling. Have a great day. And I love that. And I was afraid of stealing it because I'm sitting there going, well, Skip will think I'm stealing it from him. Skip goes, Coker, I stole it from somebody else. So now when you call my voicemail, that's what it says. And I'll get more darn comments and they're going, I called you twice. I love that voicemail. Well, guess what? You are your brand. You are your brand. And there's so many opportunities out there for folks subliminally when they call you, they see you or whatever, people buy on emotion and justify with fact. And folks like you have that high emotional intelligence. There's so many opportunities to grab people authentically. See, manipulation is okay as long as it doesn't hurt the other person. We manipulate all the time. I manipulate my kids. They manipulate me or whatever. It's okay if they're going to help me, help me do better, Greg. Dad, don't do that because you're going to get hurt doing it because you're 56 years old now. Well, guess what? That's manipulation, but it helped me. So there's so many opportunities to grab people emotionally if we do it authentically. Thoughts, other thoughts, questions, comments? You're percolating, you're processing. I love it. So thank you, Paul, Christy, Ruby, everybody else on, Kimberly, everybody else on the call.
Thank you, Greg.
Look forward to working with you all in the future, and join me on Facebook. And last night I posted Neil Diamond, 2 Neil Diamond songs. So it's not just, love Neil Diamond. I Am, I Said, and the Steely Dan. I love Steely Dan, Big Black Cow. I told my wife, she goes, you got that out of that? I was like, Nikki, if you listen to the words, it's like a poem or whatever. So love to work with you in the future. Thank you all for what you do, and keep building those cathedrals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great knowledge.
Thank you so much. That was so great. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you all.
Now, what's your voicemail say again?
It says, wouldn't you know, just call me. It's 270-223-8343. But it says, wouldn't you know, you just missed, no, I'm sorry. Wouldn't you know, I just missed the most important phone call of the day. But not to worry. If you'll leave your name, message, and phone number, I'll call you back. Have a great day. You know, something like that, to that effect. But I love wouldn't you know, I just missed the most important phone call of the day. Now they laugh about it. They're going, yeah, right. And I'll have people leave me voicemails and they go, well, you just missed the most important phone call of the day. So it's just something, but what I tell folks is if you don't have a personalized voicemail, you have reached 502-3, I know what I reached, you know, so. You will have a great rest of the day. Call me if you need something. My cell phone is 270-223-8343. Email is ibuildcathedrals@gmail.com. Just think of the I Build Cathedrals. And then the website's gregcokerdevelopment.com. So I love working with real estate folks and realtor. I believe in the cathedral you all build. So look forward to working with you soon. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Greg.
Thank you.
You all have a great day.
What time is your Monday motivation on Facebook?
What is what?
What time is your Monday motivation?
I try to do it more Monday morning, but if you go on my Facebook page, it's just under Greg Coker. You can go under, it's all listed there. I try to do them sometime Monday. I try to do it this Monday early, but I'm sort of illiterate. My son says you're the most successful illiterate person I know. And so it didn't load until like 11:30.
Hear ya.
So I tried, but it's sometime on Monday. But go to my Facebook page and it's listed in the past.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. See you guys.
See you, everybody.
Bye.